Welcome to today's video. Today I am going to show you the game played between Roeland P and Daniel Naroditsky. It is the third video in our series tribute to Daniel Naroditsky. So without any delay, let's start the game. Here Roeland P started the game with pawn to e4. Daniel replied with pawn to c5, knight to f3, pawn to d6 and pawn to d4. C capture c4, knight capture c4, knight f6, knight f6, knight c3 and a6. Now we are in Nesterov territory, which is determined by this move a6. Here white plays bishop to e3, known as English attack. Daniel replied with pawn to e5, knight to b3, bishop to e6, f3, stopping knight g4 ideas, bishop to e7, queen to d2 and short castle. Long castle by white, knight b7, g4, and Daniel replied with pawn to b5, which is the best move in the position. Here white plays rook to g1. Daniel replied with knight d2 b6, knight a5 by white and queen to c7, stopping knight b7 from white. Here white plays pawn to g5, knight to d7 by black, and here white mistakes with pawn to a3. Daniel instantly punishes it with rook to b1. Here white once again made a mistake, king to b1, putting the king on the rook's file. Here Daniel punishes it with knight to c4, knight a capture c4, b capture c4, king to a1. Daniel plays knight d2 b6, pawn to f4 by white, e captures on f4, bishop captures on f4, queen to b7 by black, targeting this pawn on a2, queen to c1 defending the pawn, and knight back to d7, sacrificing the pawn on d6, bishop captures on d6, bishop captures on d6 and rook captures on d6. Here Daniel gained a tempo on the rook by playing queen to c7, rook back to d1, rook to b7, knight to e5, bishop to e2, rook to b7, queen to e3 and rook f2 b8, attacking the pawn on a2 b2, rook to b1 defending the pawn. Here Daniel plays queen to a5, and here opponent blunder with rook to d1. Can you find the move winning idea in this position? Can you find the winning idea in this position? Yes, it's knight to d3. Brilliant move. Here opponent did not capture the move. I am going to show in the last what happened if opponent captured this knight. So knight to a2 was played, and here Daniel played another brilliant move, which is rook captures on b2, rook captures on b2, rook captures on b2, here his opponent plays queen to d4, attacking the rook and also threatening to capture the knight. So here Daniel plays another brilliant move, which is pawn to c3, cutting off queen's diagonal from defense of the king. Here opponent plays rook captures on d3, and here final move comes from Daniel, which shatters the white position. Can you guess the move? You are right if you played rook captures on a2. Opponent did not capture there. He played rook to b1, and here's the final move from Daniel Naroditsky, rook a1 check, and here opponent resigns and Daniel won the game. Now let me show you the variation why you cannot capture the knight. So if you capture knight with the pawn, variation goes like this: rook captures on a2, making this a3 pawn defend. Rook captures on b2, making this a3 pawn undefended. So rook captures on b2 and queen captures on a3. The rook is under attack. This is the only move which is force here. And now rook b2 force and check. This is the reason you cannot capture the knight with the pawn.